So today I just want to have a casual chat, a little homeschool update, actually a pretty big homeschool update, and just what is going on with us and our homeschool and some pretty big changes coming up in this coming, well, really beginning now and the coming year, 2024, 2025. If you're interested in finding out about what it's like in reality in homeschool, in a homeschool life, stick around. So if you are new to my YouTube channel, my name is Natasha. I'm a homeschool mom of two. I have four children. Two are grown now, and I have two younger children who I homeschool. One that is in kindergarten this year, going into grade 1, and one that is finishing up grade 4, going into grade 5. I have been homeschooling now. This is my 5th year of homeschooling, and I have learned a lot of things along the way. I don't talk usually about our personal journey that much in the YouTube channel. I usually talk more informational about different curriculum choices and our whys and things like that. But in case you've been following me and you haven't had a chance to kind of get to know me, those are a few things. In my background, I have a science degree and I am a nurse, but I am currently a stay-at-home mom and am homeschooling full-time. And I absolutely love it. I don't regret any minute of it. So in our homeschool journey this far, we have been following a classical blend with Charlotte Mason. For the first 4 years, we were doing really strictly classical. This past year, we started incorporating a lot of Charlotte Mason, and that is where we're at in our journey. Now, I wanted to update you if you've watched my last update, which was about maybe 3 months ago. In January, I had a surgery. I had a total thyroidectomy, and it is healing well, but my voice has still been affected. Apparently, it can take up to about 6 months for your voice to completely go back to normal. I've started vocal training because I lose my voice. So I teach in 2 co-ops right now, and even with my own children, my voice gets really raw if I read for a long time and read alouds and talking for a long time. I find I can't do a lot of variety with my voice. My voice will crack and squeak if I try to change my voice for, reading aloud. I can't sing, which has really been disheartening for me. I love to sing. And so singing songs in our homeschool, at co-op, or even in church on Sundays, I am not able to do. In fact, unless I really want to scare everyone away, I really almost have to lip sync. But that is slowly coming, and I'm hoping that with the vocal training, my voice will return back to normal, hopefully within the next 3 months or so. But if you notice that my voice kind of cracks and does weird things in the video, that is the reason. My voice has not completely gone back to normal. I try to edit some of the weird things out. But so that is one of my updates. Another update that I have for you is, and I want to really be truthful and honest with you in my YouTube channel. I don't want to try to gloss things over. We all are human, and we sometimes can have a tendency to want to follow the bright, shiny things. And we all fall for those things at times. And sometimes they're right, and sometimes they're just wrong. And what I want to talk about now is, so about 3 months ago, I announced that we would be doing a fully Charlotte Mason curriculum, homeschooling this coming year, that we were already transitioning into completely Charlotte Mason this past year, and that we would completely be following the Alvieri's curriculum this coming year, 2024, 2025. And I really wanted to be able to do that. The Alvieri is it's an amazing curriculum. It's beautiful, it's well written, it's so easy to follow, everything is planned out for you, and it is something that I really, truly, wholeheartedly wanted to do. We have always done classical. We've mostly followed the well-trained mind and did a few things on our own that were still a classical approach. And a year ago, I met a friend who was doing completely Charlotte Mason. And she's the one that really introduced me into a lot more Charlotte Mason ideas. I've said in other videos that in the past, I thought Charlotte Mason was this gentle, simple approach, not very rigorous. And what I found was that it is a very rigorous approach to homeschooling. And she really opened my eyes to a lot of things that I really fell in love with the philosophies. And I began reading Charlotte Mason's books, and I really began to embrace Charlotte Mason's philosophies and researching how I could begin incorporating more and more Charlotte Mason into our homeschool. And I've been doing that. This past year, we have been doing a lot of the alviary in our school program, in science, geography, history, Shakespeare, Plutarch, art study, composer study, all of these things. We were doing our own math curriculum, and I've always been doing our own language arts curriculum all along. But I planned on putting aside everything else that we did to fully embrace Charlotte Mason's philosophy, because part of her philosophy is that in order to really get the benefits from Charlotte Mason's method, you really have to embrace it all, not in part. Now, and I really said that on my channel, and I agree with it, but what I did realize is when you have something that works, that is currently working for your students, I think, at least for me, it would be far more disruptive to suddenly change everything and start something new rather than change what isn't working and continue using what is working. And when I reflected on comparing the differences between the classical model, particularly through the well-trained mind, and Charlotte Mason's method, particularly what we were doing with the alviary, I did find that the well-trained mind's curriculum choices were more rigorous and thorough. It does go in a way against some of Charlotte Mason's ideas, but what I found was that they were truly working. My daughter's understanding and foundation and knowledge that she was retaining in previous years was more than what she has gained this past year. I really can't say that she has grown academically through what we've been doing through Charlotte Mason this past year, other than I think in literature, being able to expand her tastes in literature, being able to be reading Shakespeare, Plutarch, who, if you're not familiar with Plutarch, he's an ancient historian that wrote about a lot of famous and political figures all throughout ancient history that are important to learn about. He wrote about their lives. So reading his work and being able to read other types of work and learn how to understand a richer language is something she may have gained. So in the classical model, we always did read classic literature, but a lot of it in the actual curriculum were passages, not the entire works. And often it was the most interesting passages, like they would be pulling out excerpts that were like a famous excerpt or a famous speech and things like that, that of course would be fascinating, but reading the whole entire work as a whole was something that we hadn't done a lot of. So there have definitely been benefits from using the alviary, really being able to simplify so we also always studied composers and studied art, but I really appreciate the simple way that Charlotte Mason wants children to really observe art and listen to composers that is really quite effective. But there are a lot of aspects of Charlotte Mason's model of education that I really love and appreciate. But I'm beginning to see that a balance of different great thought thinkers, great philosophers of education can be incorporated together to create something that works really, really well. If you have checked out other videos of mine, I talked about, for example, science. The science, at least in the alviary, and at least only in grade 4. So grade 4 is when science begins in Charlotte Mason's method of homeschooling and in the alviary. So my guess is that science in the beginning is a basic it's meant to be basic, right? You're just introducing it. So you're not going to jump into these really deep scientific ideas from the get-go. And so that may be why what we studied this past year was not very in depth. There wasn't a whole lot to the labs. There was no lab writing. It didn't really give a lot of guidance in how to do like a lab properly, like, you know, learning how to record results. It just kind of said, record what you, write down what your findings are, write down what you saw. And it didn't really, there wasn't a lot of structure to it. I think, I would hope maybe if they see this video, or if other people have the same complaints, that they will make it a bit more rigorous, make it a bit more detailed and in depth. You know, it's not easy to write, I'm sure, a science curriculum, but it could be a bit more in depth and detailed, even in terms of, so we studied this past year the Wright brothers. It was interesting to read their story about how they invented an airplane. But then when you were looking at the science behind it, it was in very basic terms that I felt my daughter was able to, probably we would be able to go in a bit deeper into understanding the mechanics and the physics behind how an airplane flies, and in the experiments to maybe guide the details of how to document the labs a bit more scientifically would have made me not want to put it aside. But that's one thing that I mentioned in another video. We're putting aside, it really began with science. We're putting aside science because I want something more rigorous. I want them to, I have a science background, and so I really want my children to have the opportunity to study science more in depth, because if they want to go into sciences in their secondary education, they'll have that opportunity. And like I said, maybe it will become more in depth, but from speaking to a few friends of mine that are also in it, they found it also at a little bit higher levels. I believe my friend's son is in grade 7, that it also was not very in depth at that grade as well. So we've decided to go with something else. Now, I was planning on leaning back towards Apologia, which I love. I've loved everything we've done with them so far. But we are also, I also love Dr. Jay Wiles' writing, and he now writes for Berean Builders. So we're going to be using Berean Builders this coming year for science, and we'll see how that goes. It'll be my first experience with them, and once we do it, I will give you guys a review and let you know how we like it. But that began my change in my thinking, was first with science. And then as I began to really consider other things, language arts, my daughter grew in leaps and bounds when we followed the Well-Trained Minds language arts curriculum, which I've done lots of videos about it, you can see, but first language lessons, writing with ease, and we'll be going into writing with skill this coming year. But I have met so many homeschooling moms who will just say that your daughter is an excellent writer. Wow, like how does she learn to write so well? I've gotten that comment from a lot of people, and it's not that, I mean, she is a smart girl, but what she's taken has really brought her to that point. And I began to see how by just having your child narrate back what they have heard, what they have learned, without a little bit of guidance, it can lead them to not shore up a really well organized way of thinking. And the well-trained mind and the classical model really believes and teaches that you have to model for your student first what good writing looks like. And that needs to be more than just in copywork and dictation. It also has to be in their own narrations, their written and oral narrations. And so that's what we had been doing all along. All of the curriculum, you know, the story of the world, which is also written by the Well-Trained Mind, would also have guided questions and then show you what a good narration should look like. And so that you have something to compare to make sure that your student is on track, that they're providing you a really well summarized narration. So I began to look at language arts, and I thought, well, when I looked at what the Alvieri was choosing for language arts, my daughter was well beyond it, but it was only going to be teaching grammar. And there wasn't really anything in writing. In fact, composition is not looked at, really focused on until about grade 7 and 8, I believe, in the Alvieri. And even then, it's not a formal curriculum. And that's something that I've seen a lot of growth in my daughter and in my children in general, is when they have formal writing taught to them, they are just, they just progress through it much easier and better. And for lack of better words, it just seemed to be working better for us. So language arts was another component. Now, I loved the way that the Alvieri was approaching history. History is taught through the Alvieri in different streams. There's 3 different streams. You're going to be studying the history of your own country. So for us, it would be a Canadian history. Then you're going to be studying where you're going to rotate through a sequence of ancient, Middle Ages, early modern, and modern history. And so they were going to be doing ancient this coming year. And then you would be doing some form of a world history. And you do all 3 streams at the same time, but together as an entire family, so that each family member is also learning about those same 3 streams in the same time periods. Now, you would be reading different books, but being able to talk about the same time periods, and then you're also linking in your poetry, your composers, your literature, your art, all into some of those time periods, so that you're making all the connections that Charlotte Mason talks about. And I really wanted to do history that way. Now, I think we still will take part in some of it, but I was a bit disappointed that we would be studying ancient times yet again. We have studied, this would be our 3rd time doing ancient history, and we have never progressed beyond the Middle Ages. We did ancient history and then Middle Ages, and then we started a co-op and we did ancient history and then Middle Ages, and then we'd be going back again to ancient history, and I just didn't want to. And my kids have always loved Story of the World. I kept putting it aside, thinking it's not rigorous enough, and putting it aside, wanting to try other things. But it really is rigorous. It's well written. And okay, so my Charlotte Mason friends who have taken a look finally at Story of the World are like, this is actually really good. This is actually giving us a spine that can help us put together this timeline of history that just reading living books doesn't do. And they really appreciated the timelines that it gives you. It gives further recommended readings. It really helps you dig deeper into the map work of it, like so many aspects. It really is rigorous, and it gives you a very fulsome historical perspective of each time period. So I'm really excited to do Story of the World again. It really was my first love, and I'm back to it again. And again, back to what I said before, sometimes when you follow those new and shiny things, if what you are already doing works, there's really no need to change. Sometimes it gets exciting. I mean, change is always fun and nice. When you see what other people are doing, and it just, the grass always looks greener on the other side sometimes. And so sometimes when you look and see what other people are doing, you want to try it out. And sometimes you can waste a lot of money doing that. Sometimes you can end up finding something that is better. But if something is working, I really now believe it's not worth dropping everything for something else. One thing I'd like to mention is one reason why I decided to switch to Charlotte Mason was because after reading a lot of her work, I believed that her method would be a method that would help my children learn to love learning. I knew that the classical model works. It really truly works. I mean, it turns out great minds. It really is a tried and tested model. But I thought maybe it's just forcing learning and not making them love learning. But after doing Charlotte Mason this past year, I can't say that they're not, although it's only been a year, I can't say that they're any closer to loving learning. And in fact, when I asked my daughter, my current oldest that I'm teaching, which she liked better, She said she preferred Charlotte Mason, but her reason was that because it's easier, because I expect less work from her. And the classical model, yes, it is a bit more work and very thorough, but it works. And I really think that when you see the fruit of your labor, you enjoy it more too, because you see that you're learning, you're moving, you're progressing, you're gaining more knowledge. A lot of the classical model also works towards the same thing that Charlotte Mason works towards, which is why a lot of people believe that Charlotte Mason is a form of a classical education. But they work towards building character and looking at good characters and comparing them with bad throughout history. We're looking back at history and drawing from the good aspects of mankind and all of these things. So, in a nutshell, I don't know if I've talked about that enough. I am going to continue with some aspects of the alveary. Now, I haven't really hammered out all the details yet, and I will come up with another video once I fully know what we're going to be doing this coming fall. I will make another video to actually tell you this is what we're doing for my grade 1 student and my grade 5 student. This is what we'll be doing this year. And I don't really know at this point, but I do know we are going to be using some of the alveary because I do love it. It's just so well written. It's so well done. It really takes the work off my shoulders, and they bear the brunt of the planning. And I am going to continue with some of what we were doing that really works well. And I'm going to be adding in a few more things as well that I've just realized, especially since I'm now leaning towards continuing with the classical model. My daughter is going into the 5th grade, which is the beginning of the logic stage of the learning. And so we have to incorporate some things involving logic. So that is something that I'll be introducing in some videos, some new curriculum to help her build her logic and critical thinking. Now, another update for you, I had mentioned in a video. So this past year, 2 years ago, I started a co-op. I started a co-op once a week on Mondays where we were doing history. Then this past year, we decided to make it about nature study. And then a friend of mine joined us and she began to also teach Shakespeare. So we've been doing Shakespeare and nature study on Mondays. And then we started a second co-op on Fridays that was really a combination of many things, but was a Charlotte Mason co-op. We would do art study, composer study, folk songs, folk dance, geography, handicrafts, lots of things like that. And we had a plan to begin our Charlotte Mason co-op this September, 2 days a week. So we would not be doing our Monday co-ops. We would just be doing our Charlotte Mason co-op 2 days a week, a little more than half days. But as we began to plan towards that and really lay out the groundwork and figure out all the ins and outs of how that was going to work, I began to find this past year became a big burden in accomplishing our own homeschool. We were doing co-op twice a week and trying to do all the rest of our school, our regular homeschool studies, 3 days a week. And through that, we've fallen behind in several areas. And I also felt that, so my youngest is in kindergarten, and we've been doing light school. I mean, she's reading and doing math. She's quite fluent in reading now and learning, basic math, math skills and number sense and things like that. That's really all I've focused on with her. But in grade 1, I was planning on doing all the things that I did with my oldest in grade 1. And through the well-trained mind, she'd be learning grammar and all of the things. And I was so excited for that. But when I started plotting it out, it was next to impossible to fit that into 3 days a week. And I started to feel torn because it meant that I have to either take away from what I'm doing with my own family to benefit the co-op, or do I have to take away from the co-op to benefit my family? And in the end, I decided I can't do 2 days a week. I can continue with a co-op, but it's going to be a bit more relaxed. It's not going to be this rigorous, all the subjects fit into a half a day kind of thing. I can give this much of my time into a co-op because it benefits my kids to go to the co-op. So I want to give of my time for that, but I can't give above and beyond because my own homeschooling, my own family's needs, including my husband, which planning 2 full days of co-op a week plus our own homeschool really doesn't leave a lot of time left for his needs and, you know, our relationship and all of those things. So I let my partners know that I was not going to be able to do this 2 days a week of Charlotte Mason co-op. And in the end, they actually agreed. They were having the same worries and the same concerns that I did, and we just weren't vocalizing it, but we were all quite relieved. We're going to go down to one morning a week, and also the kids will get to just have play, free time afterwards. And it's going to be something more simplified, where we're each going to teach a subject that we enjoy and share that with one another. And we're just a small group of a few families, and that's what we plan on doing. I do really encourage co-ops because, you know, especially as your children get older, their desire to socialize and their desire to be with friends grows more and more. They really develop a desire to be with friends more than family. And I know a lot of people, I've heard a lot of things where you really need to kind of keep their desire to be with family. You know, family is first and friends second. But the natural desire, if I look back and think about what I was like when I was a child and when I was a teenager, you love your family and you do want to have quality time with them. And it probably takes more work and effort to make those quality times work, as opposed to when they were younger, they just want to be with you all the time. But as they get older, you still work at it. You still work at that relationship to keep the bond strong. But I don't believe that you should cut off their ability to be out with friends. So part of my way of making that possible for them at their young ages is by bringing them out to extracurricular activities like co-op and things like that as much as I can. I tend to be a bit more of an introverted person where I really enjoy being at home. I'm really a homebody. I can be home gardening, cooking, reading, cleaning the house. I even enjoy more than going out all the time. Going out for me is hectic, but my kids love being out and about and being with friends. So that is my role right now. That is my ministry to my children, to be able to provide them their needs. And so that is what our coming year will look like. I'm happy to be able to say that I will have 4 full days to plan our homeschooling days and then 1 day of co-op. And that co-op day will somewhat be a write-off because it's early morning, and by the time we get home after they're playing in the afternoon, like we'll do morning co-op and then afternoon play, they probably will mean we won't come home and do more schoolwork. Although we continue doing reading and things like that on the weekends sometimes, and no pressure. But that is about it. I am also, because we're a little bit behind, because we've been doing homeschool only 3 days a week this past year, we're a bit behind in certain subjects. We should be pretty much finished in everything except for math. Math, we're going to have to continue on this summer to finish it up. And we'll probably also in the summertime be doing things like, of course, reading. And I have I got a few Brave Writer novel studies that I'm going to get my daughter to work on, which would work on her writing and reading comprehension through the summer months, which the reading part is fun. We just add in a little bit of writing, which she loves anyway. And those are my summer plans, but I think I'm going to come up with a video about our specific summer learning plans. But that's all I have for you today. I thank you for sticking around for this long homeschool chat. I hope that it's provided you with some encouragement or ideas, and I thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.